Hi, witches. You are down with me, Anarchy, for this week's installment of Maidens and Magic. I was going to say which number it is, but I'm honestly not sure how many of these I've done now. Um, no, it's Jism, but by the way, you know, oh, my tits look really big there. Boob vision. Go increase. Okay, stop. Focus. This week, so this is a little bit embarrassing. This is like my true confession time. I was like looking for inspiration, wasn't sure what I was going to do. I looked online and found this movie called I Married a Witch. And somehow, and this is one of those things I talk about a little bit more in the next segment, but like somehow I had never really, I think I'd heard the name Veronica Lake. That's who the movie stars. That's the maiden I will be showcasing. But this is really bizarre for me because I have to tell you, I am an enthusiast. Like, I love that golden age of Hollywood between like the 30s and as late as the 60s, when you had your like Joan Crawfords and Greta Garbo's and Betty Davis and Marlene Dietrich and both of the Hepburns. And I love old movies. And so the fact that somehow Veronica Lake had just like completely flown under my radar, especially also because, she just seems like kind of and I'm not really sure where I'm getting this idea, but she does seem like a drag icon. She seems like, with the amount of drag race and like knowledge that I have in that arena as well, my mind was kind of blown. I was kind of gagged when I finally looked her up. Total bombshell. I just don't have a good excuse for not knowing who she was until now. But here's the cool thing. I actually learned a lot. I had also never seen this movie. So I'm going to take you through first a little bit of the life of Veronica Lake, which is a little bit sad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It's a little bit sad. It's a little bit tragic. And it is what it is, but I hope I do it justice. And then I'm going to talk about the movie for a minute. And then I'm going to bring it back to wiki, what? Wiccan. We're going Wiccan. And that's what all that, yeah. So I'm going to talk about Wicca, and in particular, because in the movie, she actually does like a spell and then a love potion. And it just seemed like a good chance or a good opportunity to do Wicca. So with that said, I'm gonna stop talking at you and introduce Maiden and Magick's Is it So I Married a Witch? It's I Married a Witch, starring Veronica Lake. Okay, so Veronica Lake, I have to say, y'all, I was shook. I was shook when I looked at pictures of Veronica Lake. And again, like, I am a fan of old films and old actresses. I love this era of Hollywood. And I'm also pretty knowledgeable when it comes to like drag queen references. And this is definitely one of them. I feel sure that I've heard slightly more seasoned queens like Ben de la Creme or Sasha Velour, Trixie Mattel, maybe Jinx Monsoon, probably for sure has referenced Veronica Lake. And somehow, and this woman is stunning. I mean, she was stunning. This one, she looks a little innocent, but bone structure, darling, bone structure. Now we are going to talk about, this was her when she got older. She did not age well, and we can attribute that to years of hard drinking. Apparently, she was a pretty severe alcoholic, which I want to talk about. We're going to talk about why this is happening too. There's a reason for this picture. It's just a very funny picture. So Veronica Lake was actually born with a much different name, Constance Frances Marie Ackelmann, which is German and Swedish German or something. I'm not sure, but she was born in Brooklyn, German and Irish descent. That's right. So here are some things about her. She did die of alcoholism. She was 50, y'all. She was only 50. So when we talk about these older pictures of her, I mean, it's she's probably only in her 40s in this picture, and she looks like she could be in her 60s. That's what hard booze will do to you, people. Just beware. One of the things about her, I read a few different things. Of course, I've got up the Wikipedia page, but I read a few different sources, and apparently she was diagnosed with schizophrenia as a child. And she had a pretty rough childhood. Now, her parents were wealthy. They grew up in Brooklyn. She went to a boarding school in Montreal, an all girls, all Catholic boarding school, which right there, the second I hear that, I'm like, oh yeah, they're trouble. It's, I mean, not everybody, but girl. If you went to an all girl, all Catholic school, I bet you got some issues somewhere in there. The schizophrenia is never really addressed anywhere else, strangely. And I wasn't able to find out if she was, it seems like she wasn't treated for it, in a sense that she wasn't taking medication specifically for that. And part of the reason I'm sure that that's the case is because I feel, based on what I know, that drinking is self-medicating for a lot of people with mental issues, particularly schizophrenia. Girl, I don't know. I've seen it on enough episodes of SVU. I'm just going to say that. So I just feel like she had a really hard time. She had, well, let's get into her boarding school here first. Let's get through the childhood. She was actually kicked out of this boarding school too, and I couldn't find out why, although one of the clips said that a priest became too familiar with her, and that was all that said. That was apparently lifted from her autobiography, which I forgot the name of, but we'll get to it eventually. And she was known to be rebellious. Now, this rebelliousness also played into her adult life as an actor. In the pictures, as she put it, she was never meant to be in the pictures, she said. Later in life, when she dropped out of Hollywood, she was notoriously hard to work with, that was the first thing I heard. And then I read about it a little bit, and this one male journalist had a different take on it. He's like, she showed up late, drunk, and hungover, just like Humphrey Bogart and a lot of the other male actors of her time, but they were given passes for it, and she was not. Which is that, casual sexism, which actually is very, very, it's just, the film is rife with it. We'll get into that in a minute. Here is a picture where, this is, again, how did I not know who she was? I feel like I've heard the name, but still, I don't know. This is one of those cases that, but kids, you never stop learning. You just never stop learning. So, getting back here, I'm going to jump back to the Wikipedia page. She willingly dropped out of Hollywood. She had some great hits, I guess, in the 30s and 40s. Let's look at her film career here. She starred in a series of classic movies with somebody else I didn't know. Alan Ladd. I feel like I should know who that is too. Well, let me see if he looks familiar at all. Nope. I'm just going to say nope. Great Gatsby. Don't know who that is. Okay. And some of you are probably like, well, you don't know who Alan Ladd is. No, I don't know. Fuck off. I really don't know. I can't know everything. God, I've tried. This is so weird to me. And again, with this casual sexism that, and this isn't proven, but I'm going to draw your attention to this part. So you may have noticed that she has this kind of iconic bombshell. They call it the peekaboo hairdo. If it looks familiar, if you're thinking, oh my God, that looks like Jessica Rabbit, it does, intentionally so. Apparently she was the model for a couple of later films and adaptations and things. And yes, Jessica Rabbit was her hair was based on Veronica Lake, but she was really noted for this. I like this picture. She looks very vampy, very witchy in this picture. Apparently, during World War II, she changed her trademark peekaboo hairstyle because their government, this is where the other picture comes from, the government wanted women to wear their hair up while they were working in the factories because obviously crazy accidents could happen. They didn't want them getting their hair stuck in the machinery like so. So she started braiding it and putting it up in different hairdos, and they theorize that this had something to do with her career, damaging. It says doing so may have damaged her career. And I'm thinking, are people that shallow? Is Hollywood that fickle? But girl, but you know they are. You know it. You know that that's the truth. And it just kind of blows my mind. So from that point on, she actually had a harder time getting work. And then unfortunately, her career faltered with her unsympathetic role as Nazi spy Dora Bruckmann, or Bruckmann maybe, Bruckmann, I don't know, in The Hour Before Dawn, which of course I haven't seen, never heard of. Apparently there's a citation needed there, but it does say that she had a horrible German accent, which, you know, I've heard so many of those in Hollywood. It's rough. What happened was finally in, was it 47? 49, sometime in the late 40s, she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done with Hollywood. She said in her autobiography that she walked away and never went back. But here's the thing. She had a series of unsuccessful marriages. She was married 3 times. She had 4 children, or I guess she had 5 because one died when it was 2 years old. Not really sure how. Here's her again in her very last movie, Flesh Feast, which was apparently an incredibly low budget B movie. I don't really know what the plot was there. Flesh Feast. I'm sure it's great. Yeah, but she apparently dropped out. She moved to New York, and this is the part where it gets really heartbreaking. So she's kind of ousted from Hollywood because of her fucking hairdo. And yeah, the alcoholism probably didn't help. But again, she wasn't doing anything that a lot of those guy stars weren't doing. She's got schizophrenia. It's probably untreated. The drinking is getting worse because she's self-medicating. She goes after her 3rd divorce. It says she landed in a series of cheap hotels in New York City. She was arrested several times for public drunkenness. And I just got to say, I got to tell you from personal experience, you have to be really wasted to get arrested, at least nowadays, for public drunkenness. I mean, you're doing something. You're getting into fights with somebody or something. Just disorderly conduct is probably really putting it mildly. And then she ended up living in this all-women's Martha Washington hotel in Manhattan. I have a friend who stayed there for a while. It ain't pretty now. I can't imagine it was much better then. She had an assumed name, Connie de Toth, and she ended up working in a cocktail lounge as a waitress in a cocktail lounge, which she said, I like it. You know, I talk to people. I'm sure it kept her in booze, which was probably a little benefit there of that. But people heard about this and they started trying to send her money. And she had too much pride. She's like, look, it's not about the money. I don't need the money. I'm sending it all back. And this line right here is really funny. It's as though people were making me out to be down and out. I wasn't. I was paying $190 a month rent then, and that's a long way from being broke. Wow. You can barely get a hotel room in Manhattan for $190 now. That's just rate of inflation blew my mind. She did do some brief television in Baltimore, which is interesting. She had a slight comeback. Here's the thing. The other thing about this is really sad. This is all in the late 60s. I believe she died in 73. Was it? Did it say? Right. She died in 73. So in the late 60s, she had a moment of like maybe almost making a comeback. You know, she had the show for a hot minute. She had a really critically acclaimed performance, rave reviews for Blanche Dubois and Streetcar. And, you know, she had this little, you know, I guess this Flesh Feast was 1970, a low budget horror movie with a Nazi myth story. That's got to be good, y'all. I don't know to watch it. Here's the thing. Right around this time, what year was it? 69 also. She got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I read this other thing about it. She called one of her friends and asked him to go with her. And he brought his girlfriend or something at the time. And apparently there was only one. So they have this big unveiling of the Hollywood star planned. And she had vowed not to go back to Hollywood, but she went back there thinking maybe, people would be there to honor her. There were 3 people. There was one other person besides the 2 she brought. And apparently she was just devastated, and was like, fuck Hollywood. I'm never going back for real this time. What was I thinking? This is crazy. And it's heartbreaking really, because, she might've had another moment to shine. She might've had a last hurrah. But instead she ended up drinking herself to death. And, a cheap hotel room somewhere. She was in, let's see, it says in 1973, she returned from her autobiography promotion. So she had the autobiography was, out too. There was every reason for her to make a comeback. But sadly, what happened? She was traveling in Vermont and visited a doctor because she had stomach pains. They're like, by the way, you have cirrhosis and your kidneys aren't working. And yeah, she died shortly thereafter, which is weird. She went to the doctor in June. She was dead the next month. It's crazy to me. She was in quite a few movies in the 40s. She really had, several movies a year. Look at 42, the same year that I Married a Witch. She was in several movies. So but kind of a tragic story. Jessica Rabbit and LA Confidential, that was the other one, Kim Basinger. Or is it Basinger? Never known that one. And I think that I'm going to end there with this story of Veronica. I wanted to find one more. There's a classic older picture of her where she looks unhinged. I mean, I'm not seeing it here now. It'll come up in something else, I'm sure. But she towards the end it's not even that one. It's one where she has short hair and she's looking pretty razzled. She's looking like, she's seen better days. Anyway, gorgeous Hollywood icon, died relatively unknown and alone after a long bout with schizophrenia and subsequent alcoholism. Sometimes, y'all, that's life. Sometimes life is really hard and it really sucks. And it's really unfair. All right, but we're going to get on to the movie here in a second. Okay, now I want to start talking about the movie. What can I say about this movie? Okay, it was made in 1942, fantasy romantic comedy. That sounds about right. Was it amazing? No. Was it cute? Yes, it was cute. Mostly I was finding myself a little bit disappointed because I wanted to come back here and tell you, oh my God, y'all, Veronica Lake slayed. She owned it. She served it. Was that the case? Sadly, no. No. I could tell that she's a good actress, and I'm curious to watch some of her other films, but I was really hoping for this lusty, vampy, trampy seductress. I did not get that. So know that going into it, it's played very differently. In fact, you heard me talk about this casual kind of sexism that is so inherent. I mean, it's just so a trademark of movies of that time. This guy, who is the main guy? Is it Plan Revenge? Frederick March? Is that who the other guy is? I guess. I don't really know. Or no, well, no, Renee Claire. It must be Frederick March. Yes. So he does nothing for me one way or another. He's fine, whatever. The whole thing is when he first meet. Okay, let me just give you a really quick synopsis. So it starts in Salem, colonial Salem. Jennifer, which why they couldn't have given her a more interesting name. Sorry to all the Jennifers out there, but come on, I don't know. They're burned at the stake. Despite this, no, I don't go into medieval Catholicism and all of that. I go into instead we're doing Wiccan potions and spell casting, right? So no fear, that's coming next. But so they're burned at the stake. Their ashes are buried on this hillside somewhere, and they plant an oak tree there to bind the evil spirits. Ironically, isn't that also witchcraft? This is the first part that blew my mind. I'm like, okay, so they're gonna use, all right, anyway, that notwithstanding, they're there for centuries, a while. This happens in the late 1800s, and then they're not released until 42. Okay, so they are released by, it's a fluke, their lightning strikes a tree, they're set free, they're roaming around the land, these two plumes of smoke. She decides she wants to fuck with this. She was in love with a guy. Here's a story. Let me see, maybe Wikipedia can explain it better. Jonathan Woodley ashes. Jennifer curses Woolley and all his male descendants, dooming them always to marry the wrong woman. And it's funny when she's telling her father about it. He has this one great line where he says, "Any woman you marry is the wrong woman. The real hell is being in love with a woman you can't marry." So thus the evil, sinister plan is born, or hatched, if you will. And so she decides she wants to fuck with this guy, this ancestor of the original guy who slighted her for, I don't even know what the slight was. They're not really clear on it. Doesn't matter. Keep going. So there are plumes of smoke traveling around, and she's like, "I need a body, father. You know how. You're an amazing witch." He's like, "Well, you were killed by fire, so we can only have you be reborn into fire. So I have to start a fire somewhere." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I mean, it's tenuous, but not the most impossible connection." So he's randomly like, "What about this hotel?" Like, and this is the crazy thing, of course there are people in the hotel. He's like, "I'm just going to set it on fire." Ba-boom. And he starts this explosion. There's a fire. She goes in there, has a body. Whoa. Anyway, this guy, the current object of her, well, first retribution, and then fascination, and then it's a journey. He's running for mayor. He's in this kind of quasi-arranged marriage with this other political guy's daughter to further his political career. It's a little bit complicated and weird, but something that happens. So she goes there. He happens to be walking by the building, and he can hear somebody calling his name. He has this supernatural kind of like, I don't know. Suddenly he's like, "Did you hear that? It's a woman's voice." Nobody else hears. He goes in, he rescues her. Okay. And then she won't leave him alone. She follows him. She's convinced she's going to make him fall in love with her. I'm going to spare you some of the details, but like it's just that kind of thing where he keeps referring to her as, listen here, young lady, or young lady. He definitely says, he might say little missy at some point. Like and then he has this the first time it's excusable, but he twice, or is it three times in the movie, he picks her up and carries her. Now, the first time it's somewhat excusable. He's saving her from a burning building, but later when she shows up at his house, he carries her because he's trying to carry her away. He puts her in this cab. I'm like, why does he keep picking her up and carrying her and calling her young lady? It's getting fucking creepy, to be quite honest. I mean, could you do anything more to infantilize her? It's just kind of gross. And unfortunately, so is her attitude. There's this is a good picture where she's just like doting on him and just, I don't know. And then granted, she's trying to get him to fall in love, but it's the whole thing it's not sexy. I can tell you that. But at some point, she's like, this isn't really working. Even though they stay awake all night talking, and he is clearly smitten with her, she's like, he's still not in love with me. And anyway, she brings her father back into the fold. He too gets a body. We realize he's a bit of a drinker, which is, I don't even know if that was, I don't know. He's a little bit of a drinker. He comes in, shows her how to make a love potion to give to him that will assuredly work, right? Unfortunately, when she tries to get him, and she's interrupting his wedding, he's trying to get married downstairs to this broad, sorry, to this dame here, to this woman here, right? And she's like upstairs throwing a fit. Here's the first time he carries her. I don't know. Anyway, dashing. So she's upstairs throwing a fit. He goes up there. She's like, here, drink this water, and I'll leave, I promise. And instead, she sits down. She's hit on the head by this picture frame that falls off. And to bring her back around, I don't know, she's has a mild concussion or something. And to bring her back, he's like, here, have a sip of this water. Gives her the love potion. Now, see, by my playbook, this means she should fall in love with herself. Instead, she falls in love with him. And then it's just really over the top. She's just really like, the way she dotes on him and looks at him like it's, and there's this line too, which I think is absolute bullshit. We're not quite there yet, but this is the way she's looking at him. It's a little much. Anyway, she does successfully break up the wedding because the fucking bride-to-be runs upstairs and she's like, what the hell is happening? Why is this? Oh, they're kissing at that point too. She's like laid a big kiss on him. She walks in, catches him, the wife or would-be wife catches them, yada dada, flada blada. I don't know what that means. So the wedding is broken up, but now the father, what has happened? He's fallen into a bottle of wine or something. He puts out kind of like, it's something else. Oh, I know, it's complicated. Hold on, what happens? They blackmail him, this dude, the mayor. The father and Veronica, or Jennifer in the story, blackmail him or try to blackmail him into marrying her. And he's like, the father's like, otherwise I'm going to shoot myself, knowing that it won't really kill him. But he's drunk. He's fallen as he turns into a plume of smoke and he hides in a wine bottle and he's all tipsy and they take him to jail and it gets a little confusing at this point, and then at some point he gets out of jail and they've gotten married. Am I remembering this correctly? I don't even know if I'm remembering it. Let's see. Let's just read it here. Nope. Oh, okay. He and Jennifer crashed the wedding. Daniel hates the Woolies. He finds Oh, so they're trying to, yeah, that's what it is. They're trying to ruin his political career. See, this is how convoluted the plot gets. I just watched this a couple nights ago and I'm like, what the fuck happened? I'm not really sure. So again, watch if you will, but she uses witchcraft to influence his political career. She convinces everybody to, vote for him. He's elected by a landslide, whatever. And then the unanimous vote for him convinces Wallace that she is a witch. In disgust, Daniel strips his daughter of her magical powers and vows to return her to the tree that imprisoned them. Okay, so this is what happens. In a panic, Jennifer interrupts Wallace's victory speech. Please help me escape. My dad's trying to kill me or take away my witching powers. They get into a taxi. That's right. This is this hysterical chitty chitty bang bang scenes. The father is the driver. He's like, haha, they think they're going where the fuck ever. Suddenly the car is flying. It's really comical. And he crashes them into the tree in which they were imprisoned for so long. Here was the part that I was completely perplexed by, like completely 100%. I'm going to read this to you and then I'll say, so that they get into the taxi, who takes them to the tree. At the stroke of midnight, Wallace is left with Jennifer's lifeless body while two plumes of smoke watch. I don't know why all of a sudden it had any fucking thing to do with the stroke of midnight. Suddenly, this is like an integral part of the film. It's like we should have known this and why. It's a Cinderella moment, but it's literally, I swear, the first mention of it. And then Jennifer is watching his torment. And while Daniel, the father, gloats, she reclaims her body, explaining to Wallace, love is stronger than witchcraft, and puts the top on the bottle of the liquor that her father is hiding in to keep him drunk and powerless. Years later, Wallace and Jennifer have children, and the housekeeper enters to complain about their youngest daughter, who enters riding a broom. We have a very Bewitched moment. Bewitched allegedly borrowed heavily, or I don't know what they say. I don't know if they say heavily, but Bewitched definitely borrowed from this and acknowledges it. The whole love is stronger than witchcraft was like, oh, fuck off for me kind of moment. But because it almost ends on what I think is a note of redemption for real, where they're watching him in misery, holding her dead body. And she's like, ha ha ha, I knew that would break his heart. I'm like, wait, you didn't have any part in this plan. The father hijacked the taxi and drove you into a fucking, just breathe. Your father drove you into a tree. How did you know what would work? So sorry. So she's like, he's like, oh, I knew you'd come back around. I knew your real purpose was to watch him suffer. And she's like, yes. So, but then she goes back and love is stronger than witchcraft and blah, blah, blah. So that's basically the whole movie. But because I didn't want to do, that does not look like that movie. That looks like that is a child for real, right? Okay. Again, instead of, even though it starts with a good old fashioned witch burning, I didn't want to do that kind of magic again. So I am going to talk instead about Wiccan spellcasting and potions, like I said. And I'm going to bring that to you in just one moment. All right. Okay, witches, now we're going to get into the magic portion of it. Spells and potions, so I chose Wicca. It seemed like a pretty obvious choice. I will say this. I know it's Wikipedia, but this Wikipedia page is incredibly robust and actually really well cited. To give you an idea, look at all the footnotes and references here are abundant. It's pretty well done. So somebody's really put some energy into this. At any rate, the definition they give here, they say it's also termed pagan witchcraft. and they describe it as a modern pagan religion. Um, Basically, I would say that's true. Neo-pagan, you hear modern pagan. Um, so basically this is how I learned it. Paganism is a large umbrella term because basically those early Christian crusaders, man, they were just anybody who didn't worship Christ they were heathens, they were pagans, they were heathens. That's pretty much literally what they meant. It was pejorative. And this is around the 4th century, and through the Middle Ages. After the Middle Ages, in fact, it was applied to basically any non-Christian religion. So take that as you will. I do think, of course, Wiccan or Wicca as we know it today. I was going to say the Wiccan religion. That's weird. That didn't make sense at all. Wicca as we know today is a much more modern invention. I really love this photo, though, I have to say. Arising in the 60s. These are pretty cool pictures. At any rate, what I'll say is in all fairness, I cannot remember where I read this. And this is one of those things that is kind of semantics in a way, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there anyway. I have heard the opposite. I have heard that Wicca is the broader category, the umbrella, if you will, because it means magic, and that paganism or neo-paganism is an earth-worshipping form of Wicca. I find that less likely just due to the system of categorization and knowing that paganism meant what it meant in the 4th century. But putting it out there, sure, it might be something you want to fight about. I don't, but maybe you do. Not similarly, that wasn't the word I was looking for. At any rate, I guess we're going to go on. Basically, Wicca has a lot to do with, I always see it as a very earth-based, with using a lot of herbs for potions and alchemy of its own sort. Very earth and plant-based, and focused on the elements and the cosmos, the elements in a very general, earth, sun, moon, fire, water, air, earth, that practice. I think most of my friends have generally speaking, a Wiccan kind of background, and they maybe have gotten eclectic and made their own modifications, as I have over the years. Most of us are not part of covens that I know of, most practicing Wiccans that I know, which is supposed to be I don't know, that's debated about. I guess at one point, probably in the 60s, covens were a bigger deal, and it probably goes along well with the sex magic that was practiced at the time by some people. That just seems like a very 60s thing. I gotta say, they were at Woodstock, they're dropping acid, a Wiccan coven practicing sex magic would be pretty much in line with that. So at any rate, it's known as a duotheistic religion, which is why it was so threatening at the time. I mean, we had this, Christianity is like God, and then the Trinity. It's all male. It's all male dominated. Of course, and that's contentious because some of the best books of the Bible, the apocryphal books, were written by and about women. There were some really significant women involved in and around Jesus's life that were never represented, but whatever, fuck that. The two main gods, of course, we have here. Sorry, what was that? Oh, the triple goddess, which commonly referred to as Maid and Mother Crone, obviously influenced the title of the show you're listening to right now, symbolized by the 2 crescent moons on either side of the full. Again, a lot of you that have these on knuckle tats, and it's a pretty common image among people I know. Also, We have the male counterpart, which is, oops, here, the horned god. So the triple goddess is usually associated with the moon, not surprisingly, to give that balance and to be diametrically opposed. The male god, the horned god, is commonly associated with the sun, and it is the quarter moon crowning the full moon. Here, this, as you can see with this image here, also an image, again, lots of knuckle tats. I've seen it. It's supposed to be horns or antlers. Some people say. I've always seen it as the moon. I can't imagine it being any other way. But, well, yeah, I guess I could see horns or antlers, but in my mind, it's always been associated with the moon. At any rate, yeah, I'm not going to go too far into either of those because there's actually a surprising amount of ground to cover here. All right. Let's just close this out here because that's fucking with me. As I said, Wicca is known a lot for spells and for casting magic and for stupid fucking computer. Witchcraft, basically. Basically, Wicca is known for witchcraft. Now, I will say the person who wrote this article, or people, I guess it could have been people, really had a hard-on for the founder, Gerald Gardner, who, wasn't he a Brit? Didn't it say that somewhere? It says it developed in Britain during the 1960s. The person widely regarded as the father of Wicca is, of course, I just said named Gerald Gardner. And yeah, so I'm not really gonna go off about this guy too much. I will say from the beginning there were misconceptions because Wicca uses the pentagram. It was, a lot of it was speculated to be satanic or Luciferian. So who also call themselves witches. So it, fair, but it is not that. We're going to get into the pentagram a little bit in a minute. We just talked about duotheism. This is really a robust page, y'all. It really is. I didn't think when I first got into this, I'm like, but is there that much to talk about? I mean, I knew there would be, but when I saw it on the screen, I was like, oh yeah, it's a fair amount. I have to say, I have never met a monotheistic Wiccan. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Clearly they do. There's a whole subcategory here about that. I don't know any of those people. So I can't speak to it personally, but most Wiccans, as it says here, adopt a more polytheistic or animistic worldview. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about elementals. You do hear some stuff about angels occasionally, but which is the closest thing to monotheism that I can think of. But yeah, if you know any monotheistic Wiccans, or you yourself happen to be one, please let me know. I'd love to talk to you. I don't really know a lot about that. Their beliefs in the afterlife, a lot of you might be familiar with. Summerland, for example. I mean, if you know the Fields of Nephilim, you know the album Summerland, yeah. Anyway, well, not the album, that's Elysium, but it's a song on Elysium. Sorry, my bad. Don't come at me. And it is where we all kind of return and linger, and the elders hang out, and kind of maybe we become elders there while we're waiting to go back to Earth. And it's anyway, I think something a lot of people have heard of. I don't know. I live in such a bubble sometimes with you awesome people that I don't really know if everybody knows about these things. But at any rate, the Summerland is actually it's a commonly held belief. I've heard Christian people say, well, isn't that just like purgatory? And I wouldn't say purgatory because you're not awaiting punishment or reward or judgment. It's really just a place where the human soul is rested for a period between bodily death and its incarnation, just like it says there on the page. Magic, of course, everything's, you know, Aleister Crowley is like the Ian McKay of magic, right? Just such a stupid reference. It really is just, he shows up everywhere. He really does. And it's partly because Gardner, you remember this guy, Gardner, the father of, what was this? I always forget his name, Gardner. Anyway, incorporated Crowley intentionally. I mean, it wasn't an accidental thing, it was a choice. And this is where it also gets conflated with, you know, Satanism and other things, or black magic. And there's this important distinction about Wicca being white magic or sometimes high magic. And at any rate, sorry, there was something else I wanted to get to here, but now I don't remember. Well, at any rate, let's just keep going. Keep going is the motto of the show, pretty much. Afterlife, monotheism, polytheism. I really do want to meet a monotheistic. Gerald is his fucking name. Okay, so magic, Crowley, of course, witchcraft happens. A lot of things being conflated and confused, and over the ages, anything non-Christian, and especially one that incorporates and exalts a female deity, it's going to be threatening. One thing I really like about Wiccan practice is that, and this is, I'm just saying, it's a good rule of thumb, no matter what kind of voodoo you do. Just remember the law of threefold return. Whatever you practice comes back on you thrice, right? It's just a thing. Everything you put out there, benevolent or malevolent, it comes back to you in triple. So whatever you're doing out there, man, just be cautious, I guess. All right, and then here we have an explanation of the pentagram. And this is why it's the 4 elements, well, 5 elements. So the 4 traditional elements of earth, water, air, fire, and then they add also spirit, which is interesting, but it forms a nice pentagram there. And it is the most predominantly used symbol of Wicca. Let's see. I mean, it's just something. It's one of those things. But when you're consecrating a magic circle or casting a circle, this is the first thing, that you cast your circle. You call the elements. You draw the elements. You have candles. Some people are particular about those colors. Other people, myself, I am not. Or I have my own personal interpretations at different times. At any rate, I will say that I'm going to skip over some of this. One of the things I've always found really interesting about Wicca and Wiccans, the use of ritual tools. And I have a couple of books on those. Unfortunately, I'm not a very crafty person myself, but I really like the idea of being able to customize your own athame or your own wand, your own cauldron, all of the things that you use. So, for me, I wish I was a little more crafty, but basically the 4 crucial, I guess you would say, or necessary magical tools would be the athame, the wand, the pentacle, and the chalice. I have used incense. Yeah, I've never used a broomstick. I like that idea too. I know a lot of people have. Each one of these is supposed to represent a different element, or is used to channel a different element, or kind of direct it, I guess. Their idea of sex magic is not my idea of sex magic. I believe that sex is fucking magic. It's sexual alchemy. It's fucking alchemy, and it literally changes your consciousness, your perspective, and even if it's only a matter of the serotonin and endorphins and all the good things that are released during sex, there are some really good stuff. Shit, that got creepy. Whew. There is transmutation. Things are changing, and you're combining, exchanging fluids and chemicals and all of these things, and it definitely encourages a higher state of consciousness. I have gotten so high from sex. I've gotten higher from sex than I have pretty much from any drug I've ever done, and that's saying a lot, y'all. But their idea of sex magic was a little more ritualized, of course. It would be a high priest and priestess doing the actual sexual intercourse, the kids like to call it. But to raise magical energy for spell work, the part that gets problematic to me, and it's just stated right here, for some, I'm just going to read from the page. For some Wiccans, the ritual space is a space of resistance in which the sexual morals of Christianity and the patriarchy can be subverted. Okay, down with that. And for this reason, they have adopted techniques from the BDSM subculture into their rituals. That conflating BDSM with magic and Wicca is a little bit problematic. It's not that there's no truth to it, but it's not universally so. And it's just one of those things. Of course, the Wheel of the Year. Oh, I did not mention the Book of Shadows. Have I not gotten there yet? I guess we're not even there yet. There's so much. The Wheel of the Year is really important for maintaining all the Sabbats. Samhain, Yuletide, so forth, Beltane, you know them. Summer solstice, winter solstice, equinox, right? And I think a lot of mainstream people have heard of a lot of this stuff, or a lot of these Sabbats. They just maybe don't know the origin or the importance of them, but at any rate, it has seeped into modern culture in a big way, and I'm going to shock you with that in a minute, maybe or maybe not. Book of Shadows, of course, there's no real liturgical text associated with Wicca. There's no, Bible or Tanakh or Gita or Quran as listed there. I guess it just pretty much could have read that, but anyway. Yeah, so Gardner did borrow some stuff from Crowley, the Gospel of Witches, ouch, or sorry, not that. The works, well, just from the page, it says, I don't really know exactly because I don't know. It says here that works of 19th through 20th century occultist Aleister Crowley. It doesn't really say exactly which ones. Yeah, the Book of Shadows would really be, my understanding of it was supposed to be a living text that was differentiated per coven, full of, spells and ceremonial magic. I don't remember where I read that, and I'm not seeing it here. Guys, I've read so many fucking books about this general topic in my life that I do apologize. A lot of traditions and ceremonies, hand fasting is a very popular among those. Instead of marriage, it's a union of the souls. Covens, again, are, a thing for some people, apparently. I don't think, I guess I might know people who are in covens, and I just don't know their covens. Back down here, why did that go away? And then, fuck off, computer. I'm about to fucking throw my computer through the roof. Off the balcony might be better. Yeah, anyway, Wicca is actually pretty widely accepted. I don't know if people take it seriously, but that is on my last fucking nerve. So I think that was really all I wanted to say about this page anyway. That's fine. Eclectic Wicca, like myself, a lot of people practice alone and have very eclectic beliefs and incorporate many different things. Yeah, and so that was your crash course to Wicca there, I guess. Probably not a lot of new information for people. But again, practice mostly in Europe and North America. It's not super widespread. It's not something you'll find the more you'll find the further east you go, like a lot of other things. Sorry, hold on, I'm drinking beer. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. You like that? Okay, so I was talking about how Wicca uses a lot of spells and herbs and potions and alchemy, plant alchemy. But I don't know if there's an official word for that. There might be, and I'm missing it. It's probably something really obvious. It'll come to me later, or you'll yell it at me on my Facebook page or something. But just to give you an idea, I typed in Wiccan spells, just general Google search. There's a lot of money in Wicca, y'all. Tons of books, most of them sold on Amazon. I own a couple of these. I've seen quite a few more in my friends' libraries. I mean, it really, there are a lot of Wiccan spells, like love spells, forbidden spells, anti-anxiety spells. I mean, honestly, it's, you know, there's some money to be made here. Everybody got something to sell. It is, in fact, a heart. I mean, honestly, I'm not kidding. I Googled it, Wiccan spells, and everything. All of the first hits are pretty much, except for the Wikipedia, are all trying to sell you something. With that said, I was like, okay, well, what about like Wiccan potions? And it's the same thing. It's all a bunch of books and stuff from Amazon that you can buy. You can buy pre-made potions, which is weird to me. Books about how to make potions. It is really, I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's, a complete herb kit right here. Do you guys looking at this? So let's just click on that for a minute. Great herbs, but like, see, like in an ideal world, you'd have a space where you would grow all of that yourself. Now, I have a fucking black thumb. I'd never be able to grow that many herbs. So there's a certain kind of practicality. I like the case, but it just seems so, I mean, it does look really sexy. I'm not going to lie. That's sexy. It kind of turns me on. I mean, can you imagine somebody shows up at your house with this case and they open it and they're like, boom. But how much rewarding would it be for you to make all of that, to grow all of that yourself? Anyway. But yeah, you can buy pretty much anything regarding potions and spells, and pre-made or not, or books on how to do it yourself. It's all the rage on Amazon. Fuck you, Amazon. I will say that this page, and I'm not really sure who the author of it is pretty thorough. But don't be completely fooled. They are also trying to sell you something at every turn. They're trying to sell you. They try to make that money. Everybody trying to make that money, y'all. This is one that I find perplexing, and here's where we tie immediately into the show, or into the movie rather. Of course, the father concocts this love potion. Fuck, I meant to write it down. I think he says the ingredients in the movie, and as I recall, I remember thinking, that's not fucking far off. This is one that I have literally seen people perform. I myself don't understand the point of a love spell if the person doesn't fucking love you anyway, of their own volition. Not sure what you're doing, yo. Might be a time to reevaluate a few things in your life. Choices. But yeah, so basically you get a cauldron, a piece of paper, a red pen. Yes, I have seen people use blood, 4 red candles, and the rose quartz, there is a lot of crystal energy or magic involved in Wicca too. I should have probably mentioned this. Rose quartz is notoriously, maybe not, rose quartz is associated with love and the heart and emotion. So it makes sense. Basically you write the person's name on the piece of paper with the red pen, or blood, or you write it and then add blood, whatever you're doing. It's so funny though. They're like, use a cauldron or other safe place to contain a fire. An ashtray will do in a pinch. Like, you're that desperate to do a love spell. You're like, quick, man, quick, I need a cauldron. Shit, have you got an ashtray then? I don't know. And not dissing anybody who's done this, because, I get it. Sometimes you're heartbroken and whatever, you got ideas, but basically you write it. You cast your circle like you would 4 red candles for each element, representing the four corners, the circle that you cast, right? You get it set up, the cauldron, write the name, put it in, you burn it, you put it in there, or you put it in there and then you burn it. I guess order of operations, people, it's important. Yeah, so sometimes people will do different things with the ashes. They'll collect them and spread them, or they'll mix them with something else, a mead or something, and drink them. This is where you can do your own thing. You should use the incantation. If you find a place in your heart to love me, by the greatest good, so mote it be. Most Wiccan spells do end with so mote it be. Yeah. But I am really interested more in the herbology. I have to say, herbology. That's like vibology. Nobody knows that Paula Abdul's. What? A handful of old queens got that reference, and that's it. Like there are any queens, drag queens. I wish somebody as cool as Katya listened to my show. That would just fucking make my day. Oh, Katya, you damn vampire, you vampiric witch. To show you how widespread and, publicly accepted. Yeah, now are you seeing what's happening right here? This is Cosmo. In I don't know what year, and this is the UK. So, 2021, it's right there. So y'all, Love Spells, A Beginner's Guide in Cosmo right now, y'all. January, okay, 2021. I applaud the fuck out of them for using two queer people. I think I'm going to say these are two queer people. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I like that she has her semicolon tattoo proudly, have their semicolon tattoo proudly displayed. Yeah, and it actually gives you, let's take a look, Candle Magic. And they got it. It's close. 2 ideally red candles, not 4. So they're not talking about casting the circle or drawing the corners, which is a little disappointing, but they do tell you to mix some oils and herbs. Rose petal, patchouli, frangipane, and dragon's blood. That would smell fucking horrible, y'all. And chamomile. To bind the ingredients, and then you anoint the first candle in the mixture, then the other. And it's more of a visualization thing. It's not accurate, but it's not tragically astray. I mean, for fucking Cosmo, y'all. I don't know. They also talk about the puppet or the magical dolls, which I had actually forgotten about. Man, I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. Filling them with rose quartz. So they got the rose quartz. I'm not sure where I don't know about the rose petals. Maybe that is a legit thing. Yeah. So, and then of course, it goes into buy this book. That's the unfortunate thing about Wicca. I have not found a page that is just information and not trying to sell you something. So, I mean, take it as, take that for what it is. And then it, goes into all the books you can buy. But Cosmo. So, I'm going to stop there. That beautiful, interracial sounds weird now. It doesn't sound very PC. I was going to say this beautiful interracial couple, which is, I guess, technically what they are, but I'm wondering at the political correctness of that term as it came out my mouth, y'all. All right. And I'm actually going to stop there because that was a lot of information, and I'm trying to keep these to like 15 minutes per section. It's a challenge. The struggle is real. It's a struggle. All right, I'm gonna stop there. Okay, witches, I hope you enjoyed that, learning a little bit more about that. I find somewhat tragic story of Veronica Lake. I mean, 50, to be dead at 50 from, alcohol-related complications is real rough. And yeah, I just want to, I think the other part of that that really is fucking with my head, it's kind of laying a mind fuck on me, is she went to the doctor because she had stomach pains, and a month later she was dead. Okay. So yeah, that kind of fucked with me a little bit. But yeah, and then the movie, with all of its ridiculous, it does get a little bit convoluted. It's very sexist. One of my friends pointed out to me that Veronica Lake was only, was it 4'11"? She was tiny, apparently, only like 4'11", which kind of makes the whole infantilizing her thing, and the guy keeps picking her up and carrying her. It just makes it even more creepy, doesn't it really? I don't know. It does to me. At any rate, that was a dense Wikipedia page about Wiccan, about Wicca. And so I did my best to get through. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get through each section in 15 minutes, as I mentioned, but it's fucking hard. There's always so much information. And then I don't know, I go off on the tangent once in a while. I mean, yeah, anyway. At any rate, I had fun. I learned a lot. Thank you for being here and being down with me, Anarchy, and watching my show, Maidens and Magick. I do appreciate it. I will be back again, as always, every single week until you die, or until I do, I guess. But maybe I'll be here posthumously. You just don't even know. Bitches, witches. I guess all I have to say is stay witchy.